Commercial banks literally own the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And I'm saying so because in this video, we're going to understand 10 reasons as to why banks own the NSE. I'm going to discuss all this in details and in a simple way for you to understand and appreciate. And hopefully, you can also utilize this information for you to be able to shape your investing trajectory in case you find it useful. You are all much welcomed to my channel. My name is Afagza Sifuna. I am a finance expert and qualified accountant, bringing you amazing videos daily about making money and investing. In case these are topics which you like, kindly consider subscribing to this channel. Down there is a button called subscribe. Click that button to subscribe to this channel, and while you still at it, drop a like on this video. Having said that, the first reason is because banks are the largest of companies at the NSE. And I'm saying so because, guys, when you look at the NSE, banks, based on their size and even just a simple metric like market cap or market capitalization, which is a multiplication of outstanding shares times the price of each share, banks are among the largest at the NSE. And taking even an example, a bank like Equity Bank has a market cap upwards of 320 billion Kenya shillings. A bank like KCB has market cap upwards of 250 billion Kenya shillings. A bank like Co-operative Bank has market cap upwards of 200 billion Kenya shillings. Banks like, for example, I&M, Absa, and the likes, all those have market caps upwards of 100 billion Kenya shillings. With such market cap, it tells you they are undeniably among the movers and shakers at the NSE. And this is perfectly understandable. That is why banks are some of the dominant companies at the NSE. And then the second reason as to why banks literally own the NSE is because banks are extremely profitable. They are some of the most profitable businesses at the NSE. Just to give you an example, a bank like Equity Bank last year had a profit of 75.5 billion Kenya shillings. That is profit after tax. Profit or before tax, it was upwards of 100 billion Kenya shillings. That is a staggering amount. And even based on that, Equity Bank became the most profitable financial institution in East and Central Africa. That is how insane it is. Now you can imagine the trend across that particular sector at the NSE. Banks are extremely profitable businesses. Thus, they also dictate how things happen, okay? And then, the third reason as to why banks are movers and shakers at the NSE is because banks are some of the companies which pay most attractive dividends among the companies listed at the NSE. Yes, by now you should have a sense of what dividend is. Dividend is basically what a company typically pays its shareholders. Come the end of the year, of course, it is discretionary, and the board do decide if they want to share part of their profit with shareholders or not. If they are deciding they want to share maybe 10% of their profit, they share that among the shareholders of the company. And that they're going to declare either an interim dividend as part of signaling how the business is doing, or even a final dividend as part of consolidating the interim and final dividend to give the total dividend. Then that way, they pay investors dividend per each of the share held. And banks like, for example, out there, taking an example like NCBA, it has dividend at 9%, okay? Stanbic, talking about dividends upwards of 10%, you name it. These are just instances of how these companies and the banking sector at the NSE are actually among the biggest companies to pay dividends. And that is a metric which typically investors look at, because beyond share price appreciation, they are also keen at getting the cash reward for them being shareholders of any given company. And because of that, banking sector companies are also attractive, given most of them do pay dividends to shareholders and have been doing that consistently over the years. It isn't a new thing. So based on that, given an investor knew they got paid dividend last year, and historically the banking sector company paid dividend, chances are they're going to continue paying, which is an attractive thing. And then the fourth reason as to why banks are key is because banks have some of the most powerful or strong balance sheets among companies listed at the NSE. Guys, The balance sheet of any given company typically shows its assets and liabilities, right? And even cash and cash equivalent, intellectual property, you name it. Based on everything happening in the banking sector, that at the frontier of technology, right? Whether it is mobile payments, you name it, right? Whether it is digital banking, they are at the frontier of digital evolution when it comes to flow of money. These also banks that have really expanded extensively within Kenya and beyond. And that is why banks like, for example, Equity Bank and KCB have even assets totaling to about 2 trillion Kenya shillings. Simply put, the assets of KCB and Equity combined is about the annual budget of the country. That is how insane it is. Banks have very strong balance sheet, and that makes them attractive. Okay? And then the fifth reason as to why banks run the NSE is because the economy of Kenya is banked on banks. Literally, the economy is banked on banks. Out here, businesses do move money. They do exchange money. And what is the logical way of storing money? What is the logical way of trying to get credit in case you want maybe a loan for you to be able to bolster your business? What is the logical way of you getting asset financing? It is banks. The economy of the country is dependent on banks. And banks are at the center of each and every economic activity happening in the country each and every day. And because of that, daily they are pushing billions, and even sometimes they are even hitting trillions of movement of money each and every day. Therefore, it means banks are in very big business because they are the center of Kenya's economy, which depends on banks too. Okay? And then the sixth reason is because foreign investors do prefer bank sector stocks. Why is this the case? There are typically two types of investors. Investors who look for share price appreciation. Basically, they want to buy and then gain from the share price increasing. Therefore, called share price appreciation or capital gains in case someone is cashing out. Okay? And then the second way which investors want to benefit is that they want to benefit from the possibility of being paid dividends. And which is the best sector in Kenya to offer that, if not banking sector? It is banking sector, because it is the banking sector where an investor enjoys both of these things. Share prices are increasing and also the possibility of dividends. Because of that movement of money daily, there's volatility in the market, which foreign investors really love, and they invest in the banking sector. And then the seventh thing is that banks have among the strongest corporate governance practices in the country. Rightfully so, because of even the financial requirements, which are very stringent on banks around declaring their earnings, around their annual reports, publishing, declaring profit warnings, you name it. So because of these strong corporate governance structures, investors feel like banking sector companies offer them better clarity. Banking sector companies keep them informed compared to other sectors. Of course, there's regulation around public listed companies, but then again, banking sector companies have additional regulations. Remember, we have the Central Bank of Kenya, which has additional regulations when it comes to commercial banks. That gives investors confidence because of the bolstered corporate governance requirement of banks. Okay? And then the eighth reason as to why banks run the NSE is because banks are at the frontier of digital and technology innovation. Yes, guys, you remember how even the technology in the banking sector has really evolved. Years back, you used to go to the ATM for you to be able to access or even withdraw money. Even that particular ATM card is technology, right? Then came the technology era and the boom of tech. Now banks, with the advancement in mobile phones, they also took it a notch higher by embracing digital banking, embracing even USSDs, and they are continuing to avail consumers new products. That being at the frontier of innovation, building banking systems, ensuring security, at the head of cybersecurity when it comes to people's money and how the money is moved. That has really made the banking sector among the attractive sectors at the NSE. And rightfully so, their stocks do move numbers at the NSE as expected. And then the ninth reason is because banks have rewarded investors over the long term. Simply put, banks are availing clarity to investors, making the decision-making very straightforward. Banks are paying dividends to investors. What else do investors want? If not, a partner who's very clear with them what is going on. A partner who's always in the news. Therefore, they don't need to mine information trying to make sense of what is going on. Okay? A partner who publishes comprehensively via financial statement, and even any single movement is going to be said publicly what is going on. And icing on the cake, a partner who they are partnering with and they are paying them dividends consistently. That is the ideal mix of what an investor looks for out here. And the banking sector is really availing that to investors out here. They are availing investors with this long-term reward for their investment, and investors are okay with that. They are therefore holding their continuous shareholding in these particular areas, okay? And now, based on all this, unfortunately or fortunately, the banking sector is clearly setting direction of the NSE, and that is inevitable. And I'm saying so because when you look at it objectively, NSE banking sector hold the largest chunk of the total market cap. And that is because of their business model, because of how they have heavily invested in assets, how there's very huge interest when it comes to what the banks are doing in the country, how when it comes to the rewards the banks are rewarding investors with, when it comes to the sector being at the frontier of corporate governance. Based on all this, banks are literally setting the direction for the NSE because these other firms or sectors are also following the steps of the banking sector, given they are at the frontier, and most importantly, they are moving the market cap each and every day at the NSE. Guys, those are 10 ways in which commercial banks do run the NSE. And because of this, typically the commercial bank stocks are most at times deemed to be desirable stocks by investors. Please note, this here is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my opinion on what is happening in the market. It is upon you to do your own research before you decide to invest in any stock out there. But I think banking sector is running the NSE. What do you think?